Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech, live on Twitch. Expos1, thank you for the bits, and Cosminator, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Right at the beginning, y'all just don't quit being generous, don't you? Thank you very much. Oh, of course, Starlink is perfectly stable during the entire countdown. As soon as I start talking, that's when the signal drops. I'll let it recover itself there. It should be back now. Okay, there we go. All right. Thank you, Michael, for the 25 bits. Finally able to catch a stream. I'm glad you can too. Yeah, the more I'm thinking about it, the more bummed out I guess I am from the Apple TV refresh, just because I know how few times they do update it. So I was glad I get the video up on there. For those who had seen it already, I'd love for your updated thoughts post video, whether or not you agree or disagree on some points. If you haven't, basically, it's important to remember that Apple doesn't really they really don't update the Apple TV very regularly. It's at best every other year. Usually it's more like every 3 to 4 years. So when Apple does something with it, it's most likely not going to change for a very, very long time, which definitely bums me out. And for some reason, Drew always decides to stream when I'm in school. That's what I do. Every time before I go live, I think, is Yusuf the Ace in school right now? And then I go live. But yeah, the Apple TV updates we got last week are probably going to be the Apple TV lineup for quite some time. I don't think it's going to change later in the year or next year or even in a few moments or something. Like, I really wish it was. I really do wish that they would come out with a $99 TV stick. Or at the very least, if you're not going to redesign the Apple TV and make like a smaller one. It was funny reading the comments on it recently. There was someone saying, I want to read this one too because it made me laugh. Someone commented on the video, the size of the Apple TV is because it has a power supply inside it. The iMac has an external power supply. Again, you complain based on you not understanding electronics. Power supplies don't shrink much over decades, generally. There's no reason the Apple TV should... He used a K instead of an L. There's no reason the Apple TV should be updated every year. You don't use it. You don't understand it. You don't get it. You are absolutely missing the point. I found this pretty funny because I thought that he was... Roger himself was probably missing the point on, does he think that streaming sticks are not a thing? Like... I maybe he missed the point in the video. I wasn't trying to say the Apple TV itself had to be as thin as the iMac. I'm just saying make a smaller one that can plug into the back. Like other companies have done this for much, much cheaper that aren't Apple. Companies that don't really care much about making small, compact accessories, whether it be Amazon or Roku or even Google, they've all developed pretty small, easy to plug in little TV sticks that plug into the back of your TV, and because the components and the electronics you need to play like a 1080p or even a 4K image that's HDR and high resolution and high frame rate and that kind of stuff, it's not something that takes a lot of space, which is I guess why I'm still very confused as to why Apple of all companies, you'd think they'd be the one pioneering this company that is all proud about shrinking things and making them small. The clouds are very on and off today. That's why the lighting's changing so much. But there's like certain times where it gets really bright and other times when it gets really dark. So if you're wondering about the lighting, it's the sun. It saves power to use less lighting. But these, that's just terrible. But Simply Pop says this will be his first Apple TV. I'm still planning on getting one just because I want to mess around with the remote. And if I still had an Apple TV, I would definitely just buy the remote for sure. I would not get an Apple TV just for the A12 chip. I don't think that's very logical, and I honestly cannot think of that many people that would upgrade just to have a slightly better CPU on their television box. Like I don't get it. But I don't have an Apple TV currently. I sold it because I wasn't using it and there wasn't much use for it, which honestly actually it became a pretty common comment on today's video. There was a lot of people saying like, I have an Apple TV that I don't really use much anymore. We don't do this anymore. And, like there were several people I'd seen who had Apple TVs that just were flat out not using them, which I thought was sad, but it seemed to be the case. I wasn't alone there. Um, with the 1080p Apple TV, I'm still confused how it was $150 with the Siri remote that was thinner, more expensive, and had the accelerometer and the gyroscope inside it. And now they've got rid of that old remote that cost more to make, replaced it with a cheaper remote. Didn't do anything with the Apple TV HD. Same silicon, same design. They did nothing with the entry-level model. They just took out the expensive remote, replaced it with a cheaper remote, but didn't change the price. So Apple literally just wants a thicker profit margin on the A8 chip Apple TV. Like, some people were commenting that I'm being too pessimistic or I'm being too hard on Apple these days, or every title I have has a negative spin. Like, after yesterday's video was the genius of AirTags, it's like, I thought a more negative spin would have been something like, why the new Apple TV still sucks or something like that. I do think about the titles quite a bit before I publish them. And I very intentionally was like, I don't want to say it sucks, because the new Apple TV announcement comes along with the new remote. And the remote is darn near perfect. It's almost flawless. Like, I was complaining so long about that Siri remote and how the trackpad was not utilized properly and the glass doesn't need to be there. And like putting a accelerometer and a gyroscope and a TV remote that is almost never utilized. Complete overkill. It was too expensive. And I agreed. They needed to fix that remote and make it more like the original Apple, not the original, but the third generation Apple TV remote that was aluminum and had the black buttons. It was much easier to see in the dark and still have a Siri command on it and make it rechargeable. Those were like all of my top requests for the remote, and they almost did all of them. In fact, they went a bit further because they actually included a mute button, a back button, and a power button, and the click wheel type, iPod style remote. And when I saw it, I was just like, that's fantastic. They nailed it. And when I found out later the new remote does not have an accelerometer or a gyroscope, I wasn't bummed out, because I was like, yeah, no one's really playing games on their Apple TV. So I was really proud of whoever was in charge of the remote department. Whoever at the Apple team decided that we need to make this remote more about viewing content. We need to make it easier to see in the room, and we need to make it more ergonomic, and we need to make it more practical, so you can have a mute button and you can have an off button, which the old remote did not have. Whoever took over that design team did a fabulous job, and I applaud them for updating the remote in such a practical way. But whoever was in charge of that remote was not in charge of the TV box itself. I don't know who's in charge of the TV box, but yeah, just slapping an A12 in there and calling it a day, in my opinion, was like not the right way to go. And if you're not gonna redesign it, at least cut the price. It should have been like $100 or less for the Apple TV HD, just to say like, okay, to get into tvOS, to get into the Apple ecosystem with an AirPlay equipped streaming box, it costs you around $100, something like that, similar to the HomePod Mini. But $150, and it doesn't even come with an HDMI cable. That still bugs me. It bugged me when the Apple TV first came out, and it still bugs me to this day that you're like dropping $200 on this streaming box, and they're like, oh, you got to get an HDMI cable yourself. No, we don't provide that. Let's see. Is the A12 and the Apple TV faster than the A10X? Kind of. I don't have the Geekbench scores memorized, but if I remember correctly, the A10X actually had a better GPU than the A12 did, which kind of made sense. Here's another thing. I didn't include this in the video, so this is kind of today's YouTube video expanded more on a bigger thesis. But the A10X, when they put it inside the Apple TV 4K, was a pretty new chip. In fact, I think it was the best CPU Apple had made at the time. Remember, this came out in 2017. Back alongside the iPhone 10 was when they announced this Apple TV 4K. And it was June of 2017 when they unveiled the A10X chip alongside the new 2017 iPad Pros. So that was the fastest, best performing Apple Silicon they had. So they were throwing the best they could into the Apple TV, and still it was $180. It's the same price as it is today, but it was the best chip they had. And that was with the big push on gaming, the big push on, graphics, that you could play really high intensive games on the Apple TV now, and it has this great high resolution display. A10X was a pretty big leap forward. And again, that was like top of the line Apple Silicon at the time. So flash forward to today, over 3.5 years later, coming up on 4 years since they first launched that one, and they give it the A12 chip, which launched in September of 2018, meaning almost 3 years old. The chip they're putting in the the updated Apple TV now is almost 3 years old, which is, I guess, why I am more confused and perplexed by a lot of their decisions. Now, personally, I get it. Like, it's a streaming box. It's not meant to edit videos. It's not meant for that much high performance stuff. It's just meant to play movies and TV shows and do HDR stuff. So A12 is fine for a streaming box, but my question is, if you're going to use a 3-year-old chip that's not the best of the best, shouldn't this allow you to reduce the price a bit? Like, I'm saying, no, I'm not saying they should have put the M1 in the Apple TV. I'm just saying Apple put their best possible chip they had ever made, the fastest Apple Silicon ever. Sorry, Starlink's lagging. I know, I can see it. I'm wait. You can do it. There it come back. Apple put the best possible silicon in a $180 Apple TV. Now they're putting 3-year-old silicon in a 3-year-old silicon in a brand new $180 Apple TV. That's my point. That's my emphasis. Is like, if you're going to use old silicon that's not the best of the best, why then still charge $180 for it? It's fine that you want to use the A12. I think that using older traditional iPhone CPUs for your TV box is fine because TVs aren't that power intensive, but that should allow the price to get a lot lower. The fact that we never got a price cut in 3 to 4 years of this Apple TV being a thing is confusing to me, especially when it used to have such a powerful chip for the time. Now it's an older, not so powerful chip. I mean, the A12 is fine. Again, I'm not suggesting they should have put the M1 in there. It would be complete overkill. But to be fair, the A10X was kind of overkill. Let's see. So Mike says it doesn't. It's actually like 5% better. Just Googled it. The A12 is slightly better than the A10X, but it seems more to be Apple doesn't want to keep making A10X chips than they really wanted to give the Apple TV more power. Yeah, if anything, it's like a side grade. It's like the A12 is slightly better, but not drastically. It's more power efficient. It's a TV. Do we care about power efficiency of a streaming box? And yeah, the storage configuration is still 32 gigs. That hasn't changed. But Apple clearly now is not trying to emphasize the Apple TV as much as a gaming device. If they were, they would have either developed their own game controller or kept the accelerometer and gyroscope in the new Siri remote. The fact that they removed that, to me, is evidence that, okay, we know that this remote is not going to be used for game stuff, and we know people are going to use other game controllers anyway. So, yeah, if you wanted to keep the price point at $180 and keep using like the best of the best chip, maybe something like an A14 or an A12X would have made sense. Then that would have been evidence of like Apple really, really pushing for a gaming device. But A12 is like, it doesn't seem like you're too curious. If anything, it's like we basically want the same performance as the last one. Not saying this just to stir, but I really like the black Apple TV remote. The new one is nice too, of course. I like the wheel, but not so much a fan of the different colors. Different colors. It was like there's only one color. I guess you just mean it's aluminum instead of black. I mean, if you're just talking aesthetics, I know a lot of people that like the old Siri remote, but to me it was overcomplicated. Like, the glass on the Apple TV served no purpose. And the trackpad, I didn't find super intuitive to everyday people. Like, if I handed that remote to my wife or to guests, they didn't really understand how it worked, or they would always overcompensate. And Snazzy Labs brought it up in his recap video as well. He was saying stuff like, it's not that responsive, it's not super accurate, and it's not very ergonomic to have a remote that thin. And because it's black, people hold it the wrong way a lot of the time. They can't see it in the dark as well. The glass can crack. There's no power button. There's no mute button. There's all kinds of things that I didn't really care for about it. But aesthetics wise, if you're just looking at it, yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool looking. It's very Apple-esque type design, thin, light, small, clean looking, but functionality wise, I think it was compromised quite a bit. Less energy consumption if it's more power efficient. For some reason, the Apple TV HD does not have a fan, but the Apple TV 4K does, even though the A10X chip never has a fan in anything else, and the A12 chip has not had a fan in any other device. I'm guessing they still have a fan in the new Apple TV 4K. I don't know why, if there's like sustained loads that the Apple TV goes under. I can't think of any. Like, are games really that hard on it? I don't know. Yeah, they're still making iPods with A10 and Apple TVs with A8. It's simply moving them to an A12, and that's it. The iPad 8 literally didn't change anything except going from an A10 to an A12. I think they're just trying to update all of the products to not have the security flaw found in the A10 and A11. Well, then, yeah, why not replace the Apple TV HD? Honestly, I was expecting them to discontinue the Apple TV HD. I thought they were just going to take it off the store. Would have made more sense to, than what they're doing now, which is selling a $150 streaming box with an A8 chip that can't do 4K. I think the reason it has a fan because it upscales non-4K content to 4K HDR. Does that need a fan? I mean, I don't feel like that's as power intensive as people are making it out to be, but I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot. Not maybe. Yes. As if Tech says, you changed thoughts about iMac front view or still same? We're past the initial shock. We're not going to get 5 days into this and suddenly, I actually kind of like it hasn't. The people who actually kind of like it have said their piece about it, and the people that don't like it, I don't think are going to change their mind, and that includes myself. I still can't get around it, and honestly, I know a lot of people are mad at me, or I got a lot of negative comments from people telling me I'm wrong, or telling me I should like it, or it'll grow on you. I feel like if it did grow on me, if I did like it, I would be looked at as a hypocrite partially. To me, my design preferences have remained somewhat consistent over the years. I like having a design with a display that takes up as much space as possible. I've always wanted an iPad Pro on a stick type iMac, and I've always wanted thinner bezels than the one we're getting on our current iMac. And you guys remember, if you've been watching me for a while, I really did not care for that Pixel 1 design for multitudes of reasons, but the chin was one of them. There was like a big pointless chin that I ridiculed it for and was like, this is a lazy design. This is stupid. It doesn't serve any purpose. And the white bezels, when the display is off, it's all black and there's so many conflicting and you get the white line on the bezel. And I was so happy when the iPhone 10 launched. If you guys remember, way before the iPhone 10 launched in 2017, we were really, really worried that Apple was going to have white bezels on some of the iPhones, because up until that point, they had pretty much always had white iPhones have white bezels, black iPhones have black bezels. That's how it's always had been. So leading up, it's getting dark outside, so I'm just going to widen the aperture a bit. So when the iPhone 10 launched and it was only black bezels on the front, that was a big win for us. I was so pumped. I was so happy. I remember watching that part of the keynote and being like, finally, yes, okay, we got all black bezels on the front. Looks so much better. We were so glad they were black. And same thing with the iPhone SE when it launched last year in April. A lot of us were like, there's going to be different colors, but everybody likes black bezels. That's just kind of universally what the new design trend is. And we had kind of killed off aluminum and white bezels across everything. So when the iPhone SE came out and black bezels were standard, no matter which color you got, everyone was like, all right, sweet. Okay. This is awesome. All right. We got the symmetrical design. It looks so much cleaner like that. And if the iMac came out with white bezels and a big chin, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I love it, wouldn't I come across as a hypocrite to most of you? Like, I'm surprised not that many people are applauding my consistency, at least. As in, like, I've always hated the white bezel. I've always hated the chin, whether it be a Pixel, whether it be an iPad. I was very happy the iPad Pro refresh in 2018 did not have white bezels, because I think it looks so much better with black. And it's okay to have colors. I'm not against colors at all. Like, and I also think that being an entry-level model is not excuse for a bad design. I feel like that's something that comes up a lot is, a lot of people are saying, Drew, remember, this is the entry level. Remember, this is the average consumer. I was like, that doesn't mean make poor design choices to me. Like, you can have good looking entry level models. Like the iPhone XR had slightly thicker bezels, but they were still black and they still had one size all the way around and a notch. It's not like the iPhone XR got white bezels and a chin, and the iPhone XS got black bezels and no chin. Like, Apple Watch SE is like the entry level model, and that one looks great, black bezels. And iPad Air is like not the pro model. It's not meant for professionals. It's supposed to be like the mid-tier iPad that has black bezels and lots of colors. I don't understand why everyone's just like, well, because it's an entry model, that's okay for it to have white bezels and it's like, I don't really understand why everyone is so comfortable going 180 after all these years of people just kind of, I don't recall there being much disagreement. There were very few people over the past few years I remember arguing with saying like, no, I preferred the white bezels. I can't think of that many. Everyone was usually pretty universally happy. The product red iPhone 7 that came out in, I think it was 2017, March 2017. At the very beginning of the year, they launched a red iPhone 7 that we didn't get on launch day. It was at like March or something. There was a site refresh, and there's like, now there's an iPhone 7. And I even remember Marquez and several other people being like, it looks cool, but the white bezels kind of throw it off, and people didn't like the white bezels. So the following year, in March of 2018, they did the product red iPhone 8, and that had black bezels. And everyone was like, thank you, much better, awesome, we got the black bezels. So I was like, everyone went the complete opposite direction all of a sudden. I don't understand why. I don't think you're all lying. I believe people when they say they like it. I just don't understand why. That's all. Because I can't get behind it, and I keep staring at it. I look at it a lot, and I think about it probably way more than I should. I should be over it by now. That's the sad thing. I'm kind of confused and concerned as to why my brain still dwells on it so much. But yeah, it's the more I think about it, the more I despise it. Notice how in all the Apple videos that the iMac was never shown in a room that was just an office. Yeah. Yeah. I just don't think like the family computer thing is really common anymore. I feel like in the age of smartphones and iPads and laptops, desktops aren't really the thing like people like sharing between each other. Yeah, I'm still getting one to review. That's always been the plan. I was going to get one whether I loved it or not, but it's still an expensive product from a brand known for their designs. Oh yeah. This is why the matte black iPhone 7 is the Overlord. Yeah, the Overlord iPhone. Correct, Nicholas. Yes, the iMac is just the entry-level model for average consumers. It's $1,400. I know. I feel like average consumers these days would much rather have a laptop anyway, especially if they have the same chip and Touch ID. To get Touch ID on the iMac, you got to shell $1,500 out. Or MacBook Air, you can get it for $1,000. Same processor. So what is Apple made an M1 chip with 12-core CPU, 12-core GPU for the Pro market, but keep the 8-core M1 for the basic version? I'm not entirely sure what you meant, Edward, but I think you're saying there will be a more powerful version of the M1 for more pros. Yes, there will be faster chips than the M1 eventually. We're just not there yet. We still have a family computer. I know a lot of people still have them. I'm just saying, are there a lot of people still buying them? Family computers typically are the types of desktops that people hold on to for, 5, 6, 7 years. But then now in the future, we've got $300 iPads now. We got $100, $200 iPhones now. And people would rather just take their own computers into their own rooms and have their own devices. The age of like, get off the computer, it's my turn, especially with distance learning. People want to be able to take the computer in whatever room they need. So in my opinion, if you're going to have a desktop, it should probably be for productivity-based reasons. But this goes all over form instead of function, but the form isn't very good. That's why I despise it so much. Silver looks so boring. Get something other than silver, please. Yeah, I mean, I guess people get excited about colors. It's just the colors get old very quickly. Okay, that's what I think a lot of this is. I think that there's just as much as there's people that get overly negative when they first see a design they're not used to, but then it grows on them later. I think the inverse of that happens with colors. You get really excited about new colors when you first see them, especially when you haven't had colors in a long time. That gets people pumped and that gets them excited. But then once it's been around for a little while, everybody gets used to it very quickly, and then it becomes not a big deal at all. Colors are not, a functional thing. It's not a practical benefit to having colors. It's just it's a marketing thing at the end of the day. That's what colors allow for. They allow for fancier marketing, flashier marketing. It allows for people to, it catches the eye so much more when you have all these vibrant colors to choose from. But once you get the computer and you're used to seeing it and it's sitting around all the time, you don't even really think about the color anymore. It's like hardly anything I notice, even with my Apple Watch. Like I was thinking about this earlier today. I was just looking at it like, oh yeah, I got a red Apple Watch last year, huh? That was in September, 7 months ago. And I kind of don't even think about it anymore because it's a design thing. It's a aesthetic thing, which I think makes a lot more sense with mobile products like iPhones, because you take those with you and you hold them outside and you go with them in public and stuff. So having a bunch of colors for wearables like watch bands and Apple Watches and iPads that you take off and the keyboard cases and you take them on trips and stuff, having different colors to express yourself, I get. But with desktops, you're not really, I don't know. I feel like you're not really flashing as much. It's a short-term thing. It gets people really, really excited in the short term. But long term, it gets old and you get used to it, and then it doesn't make a huge difference compared to functionality, which is like, this doesn't have an SD card slot, or this doesn't have that many ports compared to other iMac. That's something that's going to impact you on the day-to-day. The average consumer that is still on a 2012, 2014 iMac will see this as the next thing. I feel like those people would rather, if they haven't upgraded in like 10 years, they probably are just going to get a laptop anyway, or those people are probably more budget conscious. If you don't upgrade your Mac every, other year or so, and you hold on to your last iMac for, I don't know, I would just recommend a Mac Mini at this point. Like, it saves so much money, get the same chip. Once I put it on my desk, won't see the back again until I retire it. Yeah, exactly. I can barely recall how often I've looked at the back of my iMac Pro. I don't think the back of the old iMacs looks that bad either. I still think it's an incredibly thin, futuristic design. It's just we've had it for 10 years. It's just it's a modern look. I like the iMacs from the side and I love them from the back. It's just the front that needed work, and I feel like that's the one area that didn't get an improvement. I have been thinking about this a lot. The reason it worries me is because there has rarely ever been a time where different sized iMacs had drastically different designs. Like, that seems to be a given for a lot of people. There's a lot of people right now just saying, well, iMac Pro coming later, there will be a Pro version, and that won't have a chin, and that'll have black bezels. But there's not even a bunch of real leaks or rumors suggesting that, honestly. It's mainly like a bunch of just wishful thinking. It's a bunch of people that are like, they'll probably do a perfect one later, but this one can be for everyday people, and that can have a chin and white bezels because entry-level model. And it's entry-level. That means it can look weird. Uh, but in history, whenever there's multiple sized iMacs, they typically have very similar I/O and very similar design schemes. Similar design styles. So black bezels, maybe I could see that, but the chin I still see staying, and having the super thin side view. I imagine them still doing. I have a hard time imagining them being like, yeah, 24-inch iMac, that's really thin, but 32-inch iMac, that's really big and bulky on the back. And that one doesn't have a chin. It's like that much design differences between two models, but they're both called iMac. I don't know. Yeah, if the iMac Pro gets exactly the same design, just bigger, what would I do? I would probably want to get. I want something better than the M1, just because I've reviewed the M1, and I know that it's a very fast, very capable chip, but in regards to export times, it is still slower than my iMac Pro, and because of that, it makes me want to make sure that whatever my next Mac is, it's a big leap forward in all aspects, not just real-time playback and not just opening apps, but also in export time. So if they made like a M1X Mac Mini, I would be so tempted to get that, because I'm fine with the Mac Mini design. I'm fine with the I/O. If it was just a Mac Mini but with a faster chip, I'd be super curious in that, because I have monitors I can use already. I don't even need to buy a monitor. So that would be really tempting, although I don't know if they're going to do an M1X Mac Mini. I feel like the Mac Mini does not get updated that often. In fact, it probably won't even get updated this year. It might be till next year that we get a Mac Mini upgrade. So I'd actually, if the price was good, I would be very tempted to just wait for the Apple Silicon Mac Pro, honestly, because I prefer all-in-ones. I like all-in-ones, but I'm just getting very, very sick of the same old iMac design, which honestly, this new one is from the front not that different. It's still a chin and fairly thick bezels. Like altering, I've seen the concept art. When you alter the iMac and give it black bezels and put the logo on, it basically looks the same as the last generation, which it's just, I didn't wait all this time just so I could upgrade to an iMac that basically looks exactly the same from the front. Like, to me, that's not an upgrade. So if the price of the Mac Pro with Apple Silicon is really good, like if it's $3,000 or $4,000 or something, that's what it used to be. The trash can Mac Pro was $3,000 and $4,000. I don't think I would drop $6,000 on it. That's probably a bit too much, but like I would like a performance upgrade for my iMac Pro, but if they're not going to make the all-in-one I want, then I'm just going to use my own monitor, man, I really liked the Pro Display XDR when I saw it in person, which, for the record, I've complained about the Pro Display, but it has very little to do with the display itself. It has everything to do with the pricing of it and how overkill the whole product is as a whole. But in general, if the Pro Display XDR was cheaper, I'd have almost no issues with it. Like, it took me so long to finally see it in person. I remember when they unveiled it back in 2019, but then the pandemic happened, and my local Apple store did not have a Pro Display, so even when I went to the Apple store, I couldn't look at one. But I was visiting Model Y Mike in the Bay Area recently, and he needed to take a trip to the Apple store, and his Apple store had a Pro Display, so I finally got to see it. And I still have the nice BenQ monitor. It's sitting on the floor, not being used, but I really like it. It's I don't know what standard it's on, but it's technically an HDR monitor, so it has really good dynamic range. The bezels on it are pretty thin. It does have a bit of a chin, but the chin is also the sound bar. So you have a front-facing speaker built into it, and the speaker on it actually sounds very nice. And it's 32 inches, which I loved using. I loved having a bigger monitor than the 27-inch iMac Pro. So I know I can live with that monitor if they made an M1X Mac Mini, or if they made a reasonably priced Mac Pro. I would be very inclined to just use a monitor I already have and have some good IO, because I'm not really happy with the IO situation. What I'm worried about, here's another reason I'm worried. I'm filled with worry, is because the old iMac that the 24-inch iMac is replacing still had 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. And the new one only has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports. But they ditched all the legacy IO, which makes me scared that when they do the 32-inch iMac, it'll just be the same IO situation, which I know a lot of people say, no, that's not going to happen. They got to have better IO. The IO has to be better on the bigger one. But there's almost never been a difference in IO between iMac sizes. Looking back through history, in the early days, even decades ago, pretty much the only differences between the big iMac and the small iMac were the CPU and GPU options and the size, the screen size. In regards to the ports on the back, those were almost always identical. And I would love to be wrong on this. You know, I hope they give it better IO, given the M1X chip and the 32-inch iMac, give it some more Thunderbolt ports. But even then, it's like, I have 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports on my iMac Pro now, and I've had them for 4 years, and I use all of them, and I also use all the legacy ports. So it'd be an upgrading to something with the same number of Thunderbolt ports as my last iMac, just with less ports to spare, which still feels like a downgrade, but it's got to be thinner. So the only way they can do it, if it's not thinner, who cares, you know? We got to sacrifice as much as possible as long as the design is thinner. So that's what has me worried, is that the 32-inch iMac is going to be very, very similar to the 24-inch iMac. And it'll be a step backwards in IO, and I know that performance will be better. That's not up for debate. We kind of known going into this Apple Silicon transition away from Intel, we've known that the performance will get better. That's a given. Even before the Apple Silicon transition, we've all known if a new computer comes out from Apple, it's probably going to be faster than the last one. That's not really up for debate. That's not a concern anyone has. So when people tell me, but Drew, the 24-inch iMac is faster than the last one, it's like, okay, great. Yeah, the 21.5-inch iMac from 2019 is faster than the 21.5-inch iMac from 2010. That's a given. That should happen regardless. Of course, they put faster chips in the Mac. That makes sense. But I have made a Hackintosh before. It's not fun. I don't enjoy it. I don't want a Hackintosh. But yeah, I don't want a laptop either. When I reviewed the MacBook Air, I remembered why. I was like, yeah, this is redundant. For laptop purposes, I'd much rather just use an iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard case, which is confusing because I still cannot figure out whether or not the new iPad Pro will work with the old Magic Keyboard case that came out last year, because Apple apparently tweaked the design. They took it off the store. The new Magic Keyboard case they launched on Tuesday works with all the old iPads and the new iPad, but there's been some people in Apple support and some news agencies saying that the new iPad Pro with mini LED will not work with the old Magic Keyboard case that they launched last year. And there's a lot of differing opinions on that. There's some people saying that, no, it's only 0.5 millimeters thicker. That means it'll still work fine. Just the new one will fit a little bit better. Like, minus that 1 year the Mac Mini got slower because they removed the 4-core option. Yeah, I'm sure there's exceptions, but for the most part, yeah, it's like newer computer faster than older computer. Wow, amazing. Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with Byron on this one. I'm glad Byron and I can agree on something. We go back and forth on the Apple car so much, but he agrees with me that the colors, we prefer the saturated colors. Like, I love the color on the back of the iMac, but the front chin color is like pastel muted. That's not my thing, but Mini Dinosaur says, do you think it would be worth to get an iPhone 12 Pro after the 13 series comes out? Right now, I would get the 13. If they have Touch ID in any capacity, I really like the Pro RAW and some of the other things over the regular 12, but I don't see... but I don't know if it would be a waste to get the 12 when the 13 series is out. If you can get a good deal on it, I don't know exactly... You got to have a limit in mind. Be like, don't buy a 12 Pro for $1,000 after the 13 Pro comes out. That would be silly. Just get a 13 Pro with that case. But if there's a way you can get your hands on a 12 Pro for like $900 or less, then sure. Yeah, I don't think it's a waste. Your head's in the right space though, because it is getting later in the refresh, as in like 5 months from now, there will probably be new iPhones, because from what I've heard, September is still on track for the iPhone launch. So it would be very weird to buy an iPhone 12 Pro full price now. Not weird, it probably happens a lot, but it'd be a bad idea financially, in my opinion, unless you just absolutely 100% need a new iPhone today. Your old one doesn't work anymore and you need a new iPhone stat. At least look around for a deal, though, because typically a few months into iPhone launch season, that's when you can get them cheaper and you can find them on sale and you can get them on discounts and that kind of thing. So yeah, I highly encourage that after 6 months, you should probably consider waiting. And it's not just about getting the latest iPhone, it's about getting last year's iPhone for cheaper. It's very possible Apple could keep around some of the iPhone 12 lineup in a more affordable way. You know, possibly the iPhone 12 mini sticks around or something like that. I don't know. There's some people theorizing all of the iPhone 12s are going to get discontinued. I think that's actually pretty possible because the iPhone 13 is going to be so similar. Probably going to be called the 12S. I just call it 13 to be more clear, but let's see. The front chin of the iMac looks like it was baking in front of the sun for a year. Yes, the color's all faded, yeah. Can't believe we are over halfway until a new iPhone. Well, the reason it feels quick is because the last iPhones were late. That's partially why. Part of the reason I was okay getting the iPhone 12 mini was, keep in mind, iPhone 12 and 12 Pro came out in October, and iPhone 12 mini and 12 Pro Max came out in November. So that's why it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, is because in reality, it really isn't. It's just that since the pandemic kind of postponed the iPhone launch, it's meaning that the iPhone 12 refresh won't make it a full year. Similar to the iPhone 10. iPhone 10 launched in November, but it was replaced by the 10S in September. So it was only 10 months that phone was available on the store on launch day. And, you know, after 10 months, they discontinued it. So it kind of went away pretty quick. Let's see. You could get a Mac Mini with 16 gigs of RAM and 27-inch 4K HD monitor for less than $2K. Oh, yeah, I know. The Mac Mini value is really, really there. Trust me, I was very close to getting an M1 Mac Mini just to use instead of my iMac Pro, just because I've been using the iMac Pro for so long and I'm ready for something new, try something else. But I know the speed of the M1, and I know that the iMac Pro is still going to export things a little bit faster, so it just doesn't make practical sense for me to switch to the Mac Mini when I know that my videos would take longer to export. So I spent a lot of money on a Mac many years ago, so that I guess means I got to wait before I can make the transition to Apple Silicon. But I'm really, really hoping we get M1X at quadruple UDC, although I don't think it's likely. There have been several people saying that, you know, the June event will probably be all about software, and then we won't get new hardware until an October event or a November event or something. That sounds pretty believable, honestly, but I still hope it's otherwise. I want to see the new iMacs as soon as possible so I can know what I'm saving for, what I'm waiting for. Because if I end up being wrong and the new iMacs do actually have thin bezels, one size all the way around, and they look great, then I could be like, okay, 24-inch iMac is a fluke. It's an exception to the rule. Here's the cool one. Here's the one I'm excited for. And it's coming later this year. I don't even need it to ship in June. I'm fine if they unveil it in June and it doesn't ship until December. That's fine. But that's probably not going to happen. Let's see. They should really start making iPhones and Apple Watches every 2 years. They're getting very boring now. No. The reason they do that is because people don't upgrade every year. If you upgrade once a year, you're probably going to get really bored, but most people don't. Most people are holding on to their iPhones for 3 to 4 years at a time. Same with Macs, and same with Apple Watches. The Series 3 is still incredibly popular. I'm not exactly sure why, but there's still a ton of people that still rock the Series 3. So making sure that, you know, imagine if they only upgraded their hardware every 2 years, you could be 15 months into the refresh cycle and still be selling an old iPhone or an old Apple Watch, and it's rocking 15-month-old hardware, and someone decides they want to upgrade, and then 3 months later, it's like, oh, there's the new one. Should have waited 3 months. It's like, compared to Androids, Apple does wait quite a bit. You know, Samsung and OnePlus and everybody releases, 50 phones a year. Apple's like one of the few companies that only does one big release a year. Most companies don't even do that. OnePlus does like OnePlus 6, OnePlus 6T, 7, 7T, 8, 8T. It's like every 6 months for them. And Samsung does the Galaxy S line, and then the Note line, and then the A line, and then the Fan Edition, and the M line. You know, there's so many different Samsungs. I think Apple, of all companies, is actually kind of the slow to upgrade ones. So I don't see them going to 2 years. It doesn't make sense to. Do you think some reviewers are going to get the iPad Pro for review next week? Possibly. It can go either. It can go one of two ways. Well, I guess there's the potential that they just don't get review units. That could happen, but not likely. What could happen is Marquez and iJustine and Rene Ritchie and all the people on Apple's nice list. They all end up getting it like the day before the pre-orders go live. That's what happened with AirTags. All the videos for AirTags and the purple iPhone were dropping like the day before the pre-order night. So the pre-order night for the new iPads and iMacs and Apple TV are all April 30th. But maybe it's a marketing strategy to give the early access people the products right before pre-order night. That way there's all this hype, all these people watching videos of the new products, and then they go, oh, I got to order that tomorrow. Gotcha. But sometimes it doesn't correlate with the pre-orders. Sometimes it correlates with when they start shipping. So if everybody starts, that Apple hasn't given a date for when they'll start shipping. All they've said is second half of May. But let's say the delivery dates are, I'm looking at my calendar, the 21st of May or something like that. It would be, if it was the 21st of May, I could see a bunch of YouTubers and people in media outlets getting the products on May 19th, like 2 days before, and they all start dropping their videos at the same time. And that's like, they get it right before everybody else gets it or something like that. Or the week before. It could be like, if deliveries start May 21st, then all the YouTubers drop their videos on May 14th. That's typically how it would go. But it could go several ways. It doesn't have to be one or the other. If it's like AirTags, we could get videos of them next week, but something tells me it won't be like AirTags, like where they drop the videos right before the pre-orders, just because the delivery dates have pushed back a bit. They're saying second half of May, but pre-order on April 30th, which means like you're going to order these things, but it's going to take probably over 2 weeks to get them to you. Do you think the new iPad with M1 is worth upgrading from the new iPad Air? That's not even that old. I mean, you just got the iPad Air that came out in October. It came out. So yeah, I mean, the iPad Pro is better. It's your money. If you want just a better iPad Pro, if you want just a better iPad with a better camera and a better display, and there's no arguing it's a better device. So yeah, switching from an iPad Air 4 to an M1 iPad is an upgrade. It just feels kind of wasteful for you to drop, $600 or $800 on the iPad Air 4 just a couple months ago and then suddenly drop over $1,000. Over $1,000 on the new iPad. It feels a little unnecessary, but it's still an upgrade. It's not like I'm going to say no one should do it. Maybe when the iPad Air 4 came out, you didn't have that much money to spend, but you wanted a new iPad, and now you're like, I don't really like Touch ID, and I don't really like the 60 hertz, and I want a bigger one, and I want a better rear-facing camera. Some people care about that kind of thing, but if the new one came out, now you have a better financial position, you have more money to spend. At least try to find a good buyer for your iPad Air. Sell it and for a pretty high price, given it's not that old. I hope the chip shortage won't affect Apple rolling out new Apple Silicon chips. Yeah, I hope not. They're all made by TSMC typically, so they have been less impacted, but yeah, hope not. Do you believe that Apple is in talks with Lucid Motors to help make the Apple car? Highly doubt it, given Lucid can hardly get their own cars on the market right now. So I don't think that would help Apple get their car. If there's anything going on between Apple and Lucid, it would probably be Apple buying Lucid, not Lucid making the car for Apple. They can barely make their own cars. So yeah, certified refurbished iPad Pro. I have not seen one on Apple's page in months. Every time I go to the certified refurbished section for iPad Pro, there's nothing there. And it's been that way for months now. I remember looking back in like December and there was still nothing in the certified refurbished. I'm going to check again right now. Yeah, still says no products available. So I'm guessing either Apple quit doing that for the iPad or they just sell so well that you can never find them, because certified refurbished from Apple is basically brand new. You still get the warranty. They replace a bunch of the components. They replace the glass, the battery, the metal. They replace so much when they do certified refurbished. So I understand why it goes out so fast. Yeah, Apple Car going to be more expensive than the Tesla Roadster. Probably, if it does it, but I don't do the dance before each stream because Twitch has been having to abide by the very strict DMCA copyright laws. And I need to find, I don't mind dancing before the streams. I need to find some royalty-free dance music that I like that won't get me in trouble here on Twitch, because I don't want to get any more copyright strikes. So that's why I'm not using the dance countdown anymore. But, well, the Tesla Roadster 2020 isn't the official naming. That's just what everybody called it. Now, most people are just calling it the version 2 Tesla Roadster, or the 2022 Tesla Roadster. It'll be the year for whatever it comes out in. But someone mentioned earlier that this was like their first stream. Yeah, I saw the D-brand skins. That's hilarious and also very predictable. Everybody I talked to was saying like, oh, just get a D-brand. D-brand will fix it. D-brand will make one. They finally made one, and it's crazy expensive. That's funny. It's clever. Use a dance with Randy's music. Randy is a very talented artist and he makes great music, but none of what he writes is very dancey to me. None of the stuff he's made is something I would dance to, but it's good. It's just different style. Look up Liquicity remixes on YouTube. They have a bunch of royalty-free electronic music. My favorite is Glue Gun by Fox Stevenson. I'll have to make sure they're royalty-free, because sometimes people say something's royalty-free, but then people abuse the copyright system and end up issuing copyright strikes on things that aren't theirs. That happened to me on YouTube, people striking things that, didn't belong to them. So yeah, I'd have to do more research into it, but I would like to still do dances. That would be great. I would say Apple should just make a full TV instead of a TV box, but that'll probably cost over $2,000. That's the thing. I would love for Apple to just make, tvOS built in to, holy crap. What did Ramal Media do? He just gifted a bunch of tier 1 subs to people. That was nice of you. 5 tier 1 subs? Wow. What unnecessary generosity. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. Oh no, Starlink. Sorry about the lag. Come on, Starlink. You can do it. You can do it. Find the satellite. Okay, there it's go. We're back. Other streamers who listen to Liquicity on stream, but I'd still look into it. Okay. That's cool to know. Yeah, someone needs to recommend good dancing music that's not going to get me in trouble. That would be lovely. Yeah, that's the thing. I would love if Apple could partner with some other TV makers and make some affordable TVs that are like under $1,000. Or even just $1,000, I guess, would be somewhat reasonable. But knowing Apple and how something like the Pro Display XDR is like $5,000 for a 32-inch panel, if Apple made a TV, they would want it to be flawless and have superb color accuracy and just amazing in every way. And if Apple made one, yeah, it would easily be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 by far. Been a massive supporter for a while. Just started watching you on Twitch. Oh, thank you. That's very generous of you. I hope you know it's not necessary, but thank you. Stream Beats from Harris Heller can help you with that. Okay. Stream Beats from Harris. That's nice of him. Yeah, I brought this up on the Tech Podcast today. We recorded it with Mike. Mike came on the Tech Podcast because he's in the market for a Mac. So me and Nick had to give him the rundown for it. That podcast will go up on Monday. But basically, this doesn't make sense for a lot of people. Most people should probably not do this. But if anybody out there has a Pro Display XDR, you can have my iMac Pro if you're willing to let me have the Pro Display. I get that value-wise, they are likely not very equal, but because you could probably sell the Pro Display for much, much more than my iMac Pro is worth. But if I could trade my iMac Pro for a Pro Display XDR, I would take that deal in a heartbeat. So fast, so quick. even without the stand. I saw the Pro Display in person and I was like, man, that looks great. But at the same time, if I end up going with a Mac Pro or they make an M1X Mac Mini or something like that, I would also be very inclined to get like a high refresh rate monitor because I love high refresh rate screens, and the iPhone is likely going to get one this year, and I'll probably get that one, the 120 hertz iPhone, the bigger size, the Max. And my iPad Pro is already 120 hertz, so that's solid. So if I was going to use a third-party monitor anyway, and on top of that, I was going to plug in Apple Silicon Mac Tower of some kind, then yeah, that would be perfect. High refresh rate screen, powered by Apple Silicon, thin bezels that are black, and then my iPhone's high refresh rate, my iPad's high refresh rate. Ooh, I could imagine falling in love with that design. I've slowly just started to accept I'm probably not going to get my dream computer. The idea of having a big 32-inch thin bezel monitor with 4 to 6 Thunderbolt 3 ports with really powerful Apple Silicon inside, all that great performance, clean design, one power cable coming out the back. That dream of mine that I've had for years, probably not going to happen, which is really sad, but true. Knowing that this is how the 24-inch iMac is going to look, it's probably not going to happen. So the next best dream machine I could imagine is a high refresh rate, thin bezel monitor that's hooked up to a Mac Pro that cost me, $4,000 or $5,000 or something like that. Excuse me. Edward says, which Apple Watch team up with the same TV makers that Roku teams up with to sell the same TVs, but with Apple TV box built into them, such as Sharp or JVC or TCL? Yeah, I really love my TCL TV. That's what we use. It has Roku built into it. That's one of the reasons I prefer it over the Apple TVs, because I can just have one remote for all my inputs, for navigating to different apps and changing volume. There's only one remote, nothing else. And the speakers built into it are not that bad. So if I could get that same exact TV with tvOS built into it, and it came with a Apple TV updated Siri remote like the one we saw on Tuesday, I would be all over that. I would love that. But even my Roku TCL TV even has AirPlay support now. So I can integrate that into HomeKit, and I can do screen mirroring. So a lot of the benefits of an Apple TV are kind of lost already just because you can get AirPlay now and other things. But yes, for the 12th time now, I always was and still am planning on getting the 24-inch iMac to review it. I will not keep it. I'm 100% sending it back, but I will buy one to give it a fair shot and do some performance tests and play around with it and look at it. And that way people can't say, Drew, you need to see it in person. You have to see the chin in person to realize how good it looks, even though I have a chin on my iMac since the day I bought it and on all my iMacs before this one. I might upgrade the remote for my 2015 Apple TV. Yeah, I would recommend that. The remote is awesome. I have no issues with the remote, really, other than it charges via Lightning, but that's a losing battle. Apple's going to stick with Lightning probably till the day I die. But yeah, overall it was a great upgrade in the TV department. So if you already have an Apple TV, for sure, yeah, just go ahead, upgrade to the new remote. It's only $60. It's a lot cheaper than the old remote. If you wanted that separately, it was like $80. Let's see, what color scheme will you get? I haven't decided. I feel like I have to get blue just because the tech channel has kind of this blue emphasis on everything. Seems like the tech channel is all about blue. So I feel like I probably should, but the silver one would be the only other thing I'd be interested in. But every time I look at it, I don't know. They all look terrible. I kind of despise the design of all of them. So blue seems fine. Maybe pink or orange. I don't like the green one. I don't like the yellow one. The yellow one looks weird, especially with that faded chin. So I guess the top runners for me on my list, because I haven't decided yet. I've got a week to decide. I'm looking at the webpage right now. I don't like the purple one. That looks weird. I guess I'm split between blue, white, or orange. The pink one, I like the product red on the back, but I'm never going to see that. I'm going to have to look at the big pink chin on the front, and I don't like the pink. So, yeah, the orange one looks pretty good. I think I'm going to try to make sure I don't get the one that Nick gets, because Nick is getting one, and he'll probably get, well, he'll have to get one of those colors. But we want to get diversifying B-roll. So he gets one color, I get a different color. But I feel like if I did a poll, everyone would say blue. So I'm guessing I'll probably end up getting blue. I'm so perplexed by the USB-C battle. I don't see them moving the ports soon. Oh, you mean removing the ports soon. The iPads have USB-C. Most people I know already have a few wireless chargers, so it wouldn't be such a drastic change. Come on, Apple, I want USB-C. I know. Type-C on everything would be so nice. I'm still confused why... Okay, they updated the Magic Keyboard with Touch ID, and now they have all these Magic Mice and Magic Trackpads with new color options, but they still all have Lightning. Even though the new iMacs have ditched USB-A, and they went all in on Type-C, why can't they just do Type-C on everything? Like, I'm not even saying... I don't feel like I'm asking for very much, because I know everybody hates the charging method of the Magic Mouse. I'm just suggesting replace this with Type-C, or replace it with MagSafe Qi charging. That would be great. If I could just drop this on my Qi charger, that would be so much easier. But yeah, just put a Type-C port here, or put a Type-C port, here, instead of Lightning, because the back of the iMac is already Type-C. Like, why are we still shipping Lightning on all these Mac accessories? I don't get it. Ramal Media says, real talk, why doesn't the M1 iPad Pro have 2 Thunderbolt ports? It only makes sense. I completely agree. I would love it, and I've been suggesting it for years now. I would love it if the iPad Pro had multiple ports, especially one on either side. It might be partially, like, the reason they probably can't put one on this side is because this is where the Face ID sensors are. So they probably don't have room in the device, but, I've always suggested, put Face ID sensors here because everybody's using it in landscape all the time. But the reason they probably don't put the True Depth camera system here is because there's the Apple Pencil connector on the side, and that's where the charge coil for this thing is. So every time you move something, but yeah, you're right. If you just put 2 here, honestly, I don't think people would be that mad. I am not against having more I/O, or as more people are using it with the keyboard case, right? Like Apple in like every picture of the M1 iPad Pro showed it with the keyboard case. What if we move the speaker grills a bit? You've even got a little bit of room here. Why don't we start putting Type-C on the bottom? Not so much like when you're using the keyboard case, it's way up here, way up high. Instead, make it a bit more MacBook-like. Put it down here, like 2 USB-C ports here, or 1 here and 1 on the other side. Like, yeah, I don't understand why they couldn't put 2 on, but just the fact that the keyboard case adds a charging port, I was happy with. Like, yeah, you're right. The extra Type-C port is a good incentive to get the Magic Keyboard. That might be part of the reason. But now that it has an M1, yeah, exactly. Why can't it? If you go with white, Apple actually used a Genesis white for the iMac, which is a cross between Silver Dollar and Paper White. Wow. It's amazing how many different ways you can make an ugly design. So many different crappy whites to choose from. I don't know. I feel like all the colors are what makes the new iMac stand out. Like, people are excited for the colors, and that drives clicks and hype and stuff. So if you got a white one, I don't know, it would just look kind of bland probably. The speaker are in those corners. Yeah, just move them. Just push them up a bit. If you don't have a port here, then you can move the speakers up here. I don't know. There's room. I don't think it's that hard. You can fit 2 Type-C ports on MacBook Air. You can do it on the iPad. You can do it. Anyway, but the port on the case is only for 5-watt charging, no data transfer. Yeah, it's not high speed, but typically if we need more than 1 port, it's probably because we want power on one. That's usually what it is. And you can use an adapter on the one Type-C port the iPad Pro does have. Now that it's Thunderbolt, you could charge the iPad through that port. You could import footage from that port while simultaneously outputting to a monitor. So that one Thunderbolt port is very capable still. But I still agree. Yeah, more Type-C ports, the better. iMac gets 7 colors, but the iPad Pro gets 2. Yeah, right. Exactly. Anyways, I got to get going, but I appreciate you all for your bits and your Twitch Primes. I love chatting with you all, and I appreciate you tuning in. And Tech Podcast dropping Monday. I might be working tomorrow, actually, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, look at me, guys. I'm all vaxxed. I'm full of holes. That's why I sat for today's video. My arm feels kind of sore, but it's all right. It's just the 5G kicking in. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.